As they say in hockey, let's do that hockey.
Play a full 60 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Get pucks deep, bring the puck deep, put pucks in deep. We got to keep it simple and just get pucks going forward.
Getting into the forecheck.
We got to keep playing aggressive.
Trying to take away their time and space.
We're focused on tonight. We just got to stick to our game.
Well, the summer is almost on its way out here in episode 34, ready to go. Welcome back to the Fifth Liners. A long-awaited return and a new face to join the show. One back in action. Matt Leonardo is here, and Owen Gunn, the former voice of the South Carolina Stingrays, now headed to Hockey East to call Vermont hockey, is now a fifth liner. Owen, welcome aboard. Intro yourself here. Tell the fans a little bit about yourself and maybe what you're most excited about headed up to Vermont.
Yeah, well, it's great to be on here. Thank you, Casey and Matt, for having me hopping on here. It's we got a great amount of NHL hockey to talk about too, and we're going to talk about some college hockey a little bit at the end also. But now I'm just kind of hanging out, enjoying the summertime in Boston. It's been pretty sunny, relatively sunny weather last couple of days, so taking advantage of that. But definitely have the hockey bug. Definitely ready for season to start. So it's good to finally talk about some hockey. I mean, I feel like we had the draft and then, we had a couple of trades June and then early July, but it's been pretty quiet for a little while. So it's nice to be talking hockey again.
Well, we had plans to go weekly shows through July. Life hits fast. Yeah. I've been on the move. Matt's been in Europe. We picked up Owen for that reason. So now an extra face to help us out here. And we're going to be clicking as August gets going. Hockey season coming faster than everyone can count down. We'll have some fantasy hockey coming before we know it, and it's almost draft season. Matt's terrified thinking about that I've just been sitting on it all month when he's been partying out in Europe. Matt Leonardo, what's going on, buddy? Catch us up. Where have you been in the world that is not in the United States?
We can do the whole map jump. We did a 2-week hiatus out in Europe for the 4th of July. Very patriotic of us. Started out in London, did Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Stockholm, and a small area out in Finland called Turku. A lot of people thought I was in Turkey, not the case. But it was a great trip. Really awesome to see Scandinavia for the first time. And actually got some compliments from some Finnish Bruins fans for their Tuukka Rask love back in the early 2010s. So glad I brought my Bruins hat, brought my Italy hockey hat, and getting ready here for the Olympics coming up in 2026 out in Rome. So getting dialed up ready for that. We're going to be rooting for the boys as long as they're in the tournament, which I can only imagine will be so long. But yeah, looking forward to hockey season. We're at the point in baseball where the Rays are finally out of it for, they usually sell at the deadline. They're out of it. Hopefully the Red Sox, since I'm local, can have a little spark here. But besides that, it's you get old in baseball pretty quick in August. So ready for the puck to drop here for sure.
So the hat says Italy hockey. IIHF has not gone calling. Don't let him fool you. He will not be playing in the upcoming Olympics. One guy who will be, though, is on the NHL cover. And Matt, I'll send it that way. How deserving is Brady Tkachuk to hop on NHL 26? Obviously, EA Sports, big fans of the Fifth Liners Hockey Podcast. And I wish I had my Sens hat in range because I would be repping it pretty proud right now.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that's his brother. I don't know, but no, it's definitely awesome to see. So much buzz around the Four Nations tournament for those two brothers, and brought so many people into watching hockey. I mean, they're still talking about those fights that started in the first 10 seconds of the U.S.-Canada game. So, brought so much energy and buzz around the sport back in February. Matthew's able to go ahead and win the Stanley Cup. Brady brings him to the playoffs for the first time in God knows how long. I want to say 2017. So I think it's very deserving of both guys, and they really are starting to become 1 and 2 of some of the faces of the sport. The way they play, the energy they bring, it's definitely an exciting brand of hockey that a lot of young fans want to watch.
We'll throw Owen right into it and maybe check if there's a hot take. It's been a lot of controversy around Matthew Tkachuk, whether or not he's the superstar that deserves the front cover, saying maybe McDavid, McKinnon, Cal McCarr, the number 1A guys should be there. Is Matthew Tkachuk that guy? And are you going to be playing NHL 26 when it drops coming up?
I think he's a great person to have, and I think he's just done so much to grow hockey in Florida, and just is one of the most, like Matt was saying, just popular American born players in a while. And I know, McDavid would have been great too, but Kachuk is awesome, and he is just, I think one of the cool things about him too that you don't really see a lot with hockey players is that you don't always see, is just the personality that he brings in his interviews and stuff. He's very candid. He's direct. He always gives a thoughtful, long answer. So I think he's just a really good ambassador for hockey. He's going to be a good on the cover for sure. And yes, I am gonna play. I'm not the best at Chell, but I'm working on my skills, and we'll see.
I'm gonna have to get the gaming system back at it. I haven't played since NHL 23, and then I picked up 25 when it came out at a friend's house, and they changed all the controls, and that was it for me there. So I as well have to pick it up and start playing. Now I got a little bit more time on my hands. Somebody missed out on telling me that getting a real world job gives you a lot more time than going to school. So going back for 2 more years of school, I'm scratching my head at right now, because now I have the evenings to spend more time doing this, which is a lot more enjoyable than doing this while avoiding homework. So I guess that didn't usually deter me too fast, though. I have a major gripe before we dive into the NHL and the offseason, the draft, the free agency, and it comes with Apple products. I, before hopping on, went to Walmart, and a short story here, to go buy some AirPods because I lose them at least once a year. The newest version of the AirPods has been lost actually when I was in Italy. Haven't had them since March, and Matt didn't find them while he was over there. So went to Walmart. They do not come with the lightning charger anymore, just USB-C. I don't own a USB-C cable because my phone is still lightning. I have like the iPhone 13, which is maybe 3 years old. I
Yeah.
can't find a freaking charger for my phone, and I've lost all my chargers because that happens anywhere I go on vacation. I'm guaranteed to lose at least two of them. So I'm down to one charger, and it's one of the Walmart chargers from a year ago. That one's not working anymore, so I'm going to buy a Walmart charger. It took me in the wall of chargers that's maybe 20 feet long. I kid you not, it took me 8 minutes to find one charger that has the lightning port. So I am going to throw it out to any NIL sponsors listening. I need a lightning charger cord sponsorship here for the start of the season to keep me juiced up. But there's good things going on. Demi Lovato is back, and the Jonas Brothers tour is starting. So Camp Rock has reunited, and that's all over my For You page. The big news of the offseason is that Vegas has won the Mitch Marner sweepstakes, and NHL 26, while we're still rolling off that, even threw in a little dart. The the trailer to it had Marner scoring on the Maple Leafs. Is this a big win for Vegas, and does that put them on the West Coast back to the top in Stanley Cup contention over the Oilers, who are trying to stay relevant?
I think it's one of those things where you look at that team now, and there's just so many options at this point, right? Like, they historically have always been a team that's going to go and get guys at the top of the lineup and really try and go for it. And this just is status quo Vegas Golden Knights. But you look at their roster, right? There's so much flexibility down the lineup that you can use. You look at a guy like Dorofeyev last year, who put up 30, 35 goals. Imagine him with Stone, or with Marner and Eichel being able to feed him the puck. Like, that's a formidable first line, and it allows you to move guys down the lineup and kind of build some depth outside there, right? You still got Hurdle, still have Mark Stone, who's still a very strong, formidable two-way player when healthy, as a point-per-game guy. You got Barbashev, you got Will Karlsson, right? Like, this forward group is very dangerous. You think about Dallas, and you think about Edmonton, obviously, in the Western Conference, but outside of those two teams, like, is there another team besides Vegas that has the star power? Besides, like, I think easily solidifies themselves as one of the top 2 teams in the Pacific. I'm not sure if any of the other teams in the Pacific made great moves this offseason to really compete with Edmonton. And then you look at the Central, obviously you've got Colorado, you've got Dallas, but I mean, this forward core is one of, if not the best top 6s in the NHL at this point.
Mm-hmm. And Marner's playmaking, like you mentioned, is just, I think he's more than capable of showing up in big moments. I know he hasn't had the playoff success in Toronto the last couple of years, but I think that being in Vegas is going to take a lot of pressure off of him too. Just being, outside of the, Canadian media and everything that he has to deal with, being Toronto, being from Toronto too, and all the pressure that adds. I think just being in Vegas, you saw what the change of scenery did to Jack Eichel. I mean, just imagine Marner passing the puck to Jack Eichel, like you mentioned, just the success that's going to lead to. And also just the idea of him not being a clutch player. Like, I know that has been said a lot. Like, people forget, like, he had a really good Four Nations tournament. He looked really good. He gave that pass to McDavid to set up the game winner. Like, I have a lot of confidence that he is going to, have a really good regular season like he's tended to, but then also that when playoffs come, he's going to show up then as well.
And it's not just him who's been criticized on the Maple Leafs for falling apart as the playoffs have come in. But as you look with what he did, you mentioned the success in the Four Nations. How about the past season? He had 102 points, and Austin Matthews was a non-factor for a lot of that with injury, fighting through that, and he still put up those numbers. It's not crazy to think that he comes into this year, Jack Eichel at his center, and a guy that has the speed to kind of keep up with him, and goes even past that. 110 points maybe could be in the range. Do you guys see him putting up the same numbers or more that he had this past year?
You got to think over 100 is the right number, right? I mean, if I'm setting the line at an over-under there, especially if Eichel can stay healthy for the whole season, and even if he doesn't, right? You think about their center depth. I like a guy like William Karlsson on the third line, but if he's played top 6 minutes on a team that has gone to the Stanley Cup final for Vegas back in 2018, and then you look at a guy like Tomas Hertl, who still has a decent amount left in the tank there up the middle, you never know who's going to be on that wing, right? You could move Stone over to the left side. Like, again, with the versatility, I don't see a path where Marner doesn't have very strong line mates on that top line. You're paying him $12 million. He's going to play the most minutes. He's going to play all 3 situations of the ice there. Like, I don't see a spot where he doesn't get over 100.
Especially playing in the Pacific Division too. I mean, like you were saying too, playing against some of those weaker teams more often. I mean, the Atlantic Division, I feel like when you're playing against the Panthers and you're playing against the Lightning and more frequently, and just like the Eastern Conference, all the stacked teams they have, I feel like there are going to be more games in the Western Conference where he's going to have the opportunity to have some multi-point games.
The Florida Panthers, back-to-back defending Stanley Cup champions, and they kept everybody. The question was who was going to be the odd man out. Bennett, Marchand, Ekblad. They could only keep 2 of the 3. Well, now we sit here a month later looking back, and all 3 of them will stay. The entire core locked up for the next 6 years, and that includes Tkachuk, Barkov. That includes Carter Verhaeghe. That includes the defensive end and those 3 guys. It is almost impossible to think that they don't repeat again in the three-peat fashion. They'd be the first back-to-back champions since the Islanders. I'm picking them. That's my team going into this year, and I think the Florida Panthers are bound to keep going with the exact same core, the veterans. The only question, I guess, would be if they can last through the amount of hockey they've had to play with 3 straight Stanley Cup appearances. But that doesn't seem to phase them. And you think Kachuk's out on the IR until about December here, resting up a little bit, maybe a slower start for the Panthers, kind of the same they did this year, shooting for a 2-3 seed. That's no problem for them, and they showed that this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, right? Like, you have to beat the best to be the best, right? When the Lightning were going through the multiple Stanley Cups and all those deep runs, it was like every year we'd be like, we get to the playoffs and like whoever's facing Tampa is going to have a tough out. everyone just moved over from Tampa to Florida, essentially, right? Like this team is going to be locked up for a while. The one concern I do have is probably that D core. I think there's times where that defensive core has a little bit of exposure, especially when an injury comes to play, right? Aaron Ekblad's not been the healthiest guy. Seth Jones has gone down with injuries here and there, right? You're lucky to get, you're going to have to put somebody in that top four between Mikkola and Belinskis and Kulikov and Petrie, right? Like, somebody's going to have to step up and play some extended minutes. And last year that ended up being Nate Schmidt. The year before it was Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So we'll see if they can do the same thing with Petrie this year. But for me, I think if anything, that D-core is kind of a question mark. It's always been for me one of those, I guess, gaps in this team. Obviously the top nine is outstanding and they play so well together. But we'll see as the season progresses if, the Eastern Conference is going to be tough again. It's tough every single year. So it'll be interesting to see what some of the other teams are able to do. But another thing to think about too, they're $4 million over the cap right now. You expect Tkachuk to go on LTIR, but when he comes back, right, you're going to have to try and move some pieces around in order to get him onto your roster. So we'll see what they do. There's still probably a couple moves to be made for the Panthers in order to get themselves ready for that run. But you can't help but think, right, it's the same team that's won the last 2 years. How are they not going to keep doing that?
Yeah, I think so too. I think and you kind of touched on it too, but I think the only thing that I could see potentially tripping them up is, if they get into some injury trouble. I mean, especially considering that, a handful of their players are going to be playing in the Olympics this year, and that's going to take even more of a toll than the Four Nations did. But I think there's a fatigue factor too of how much hockey they play. But if there's any group that can, just kind of keep it going, it's this squad. With the way they play night in and night out, they just play such a playoff style of play. And I don't know if there's another team out there that can really match the physicality and just, the tenacity that they bring in the playoffs, even if they're kind of coasting to a 2 or a 3 seed. When it's time to show up, they always do. So I don't see them running into too much trouble at the end of the day.
Matt's one of our prospect nerds here, and the New York Islanders are one of the teams when it comes to winners and losers that stood out to me, and especially on the draft. The aggressive trade with Montreal, they send Noah Dobson there, received the 16th and 17th overall picks, as well as a couple players in that. They get Matthew Schaefer, number 1 overall. They sign Jonathan Drouin to a 2-year, $4 million deal. So by the time Schaefer and those prospects are really coming to, that's a deal that's not going to be hurting you long term. But Matt, where do you rank New York? And is that as high as me? I would put them at least in my top 3 to 5 winners of the offseason overall, and certainly putting themselves in a position here looking forward where they've been a teetering team kind of on that playoff edge. Last year we saw it take a nosedive and looking towards full rebuild. All of a sudden a new GM in there with Darsh, right back on the tracks.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams watched what Nashville did last year and got really scared this offseason to start offering up a ton of players, a ton of money to try and just almost build a roster like a Build-A-Bear. And I think when you look at this New York Islanders core, the last 2-3 years, it's been the same boring hockey team. And yes, there was plenty of success for it in the early 2020s, but I think they just got to a point where this team was not going to be competitive. Their back line was getting older, right? Nick Leddy, Ryan Pollock, Adam Pellich, everyone's starting to get past that age curve of 30 or on the wrong side of it at this point. But especially the forward core, when you think about Anders Lee and Brock Nelson and Josh Bailey and all these guys who've been in New York for so long and just continued to just not really mesh. It was a winning style of hockey for a short period of time. But every year we've seen that you need that top end star talent to go out and win a Stanley Cup. And I like to think Barzal could be that, but he just hasn't shown that yet as somebody who can really take that next step and carry a team. Granted, I think he's a great secondary piece in a scoring offense, but they don't have that guy, and it's not super easy to just go and get that guy. So you win the lottery for the number 1 overall pick. It's a great opportunity to start to refresh your timeline, and they make some great moves to kind of do that. Right, they get 16 and 17 in the draft. 2 more extra picks that they can use to try and grab more prospects. I think the Drouin signing is an interesting one. I'd be shocked if he's there for the 2 years of the term, right? It makes me think a lot more of a lot of the moves that teams like San Jose and Anaheim have made in the past, where you think of a guy like Mikko Granlund last year, who was 2-year deal, $5 million. They get him to be playing at a high level and then are able to ship him off for a ton of value from Dallas. So I think it's definitely time to start to tear some of the pieces down, and a lot of their guys besides Barzal, Horvat, Sorokin are pretty much gone after the next 2 years. So I think it is definitely going to be a lot of roster turnover, but I think they've at least started to realize that it's time to do that, and I think they've put themselves in a good spot to start moving in that direction.
Yeah, and I think Schaefer, there's a lot to be really excited about with him. He's the kind of defenseman that you can really build around, and it was cool listening to his interview with Spin Chicklets earlier in the summer too, where he was talking about how he's training with Mark Giordano, who won the Norris Trophy a couple of years ago, and how he's been working with him and training with him, and so he really, I think, is has a lot of potential to be like more kind of underrated than because he's obviously not like some of the other number 1 picks that you've had. You don't always see a defenseman going first overall, but like he definitely has the potential to be a really like well-rounded player that Islanders fans can be really, really excited about. I mean, I think this is it's been a while since Islanders fans have had reasons to be this excited. So that's cool to see how everything's going to play out.
Oh, and the Carolina Hurricanes were one of your teams that stood out this offseason, and something I like to hear as a Hurricanes fan. K'Andre Miller acquired in a trade from New York. They trade and sign him 8 years, $7.5 million. So they lock up him on the defensive core side, a young guy with a lot of potential that hasn't quite been there on the New York side, kind of similar to Marner, with maybe the noise of the market getting to him now, going to a much softer media side on the Carolina market. They trade away Scott Morrow, a conditional first rounder, and a second rounder. Morrow got a lot of action in the playoffs this year with a couple of injuries on the back end. They also give away one of those picks that came from Dallas in the Rantanen trade with the second rounder. Where do you see this trade going? Morrow, a much younger guy, less established than K'Andre Miller, but coming out of UMass, one of the top prospects, a guy that was talked about quite a bit, whereas K'Andre Miller comes in and a chance for him to really rebrand himself, make an immediate impact.
Yeah, and he's still a young player too, K'Andre, 25 years old, so he definitely his best hockey is in front of him, and I think Carolina is just they're locking up a lot of good young pieces that they believe fit really well with their system. And if you know anything about Coach Brendan Moore and the style that he demands, is that it's just a really structured, disciplined system. And this team, they have their kind of players that they go after, like Logan Stankoven, who they re-signed, and they just have their players that they know fit the identity of that team, and they go after them hard, and a lot of times they fit really well. So I would expect no different with K'Andre Miller. The Canes are really, they know how to just develop puck-moving defensemen like him that much more. And so I think he's going to take another step in his game in Carolina. And I think just they've always been a fast, speedy team, right, too. And I think Ehlers coming in, too, is just going to add to that. So I think they're going to keep having the success that they've had the last couple of years, but they're also just going to continue to be a really fun team to watch.
I'm super high on Carolina this year. Ditzel, you're going to love me for this one, but I think all the pieces are coming together at the right time for them finally. I think the last 5 or 6 years, they've made some deep runs in the playoffs, but they've always felt like they were missing that one piece. They go and try and do it last year with Rantanen. It only works for about 8 games. And they get a guy in Stankoven who I'm a huge fan of. I was listening to Bar Down talk about their free agency a few days ago, and the one thing they had mentioned that they thought was interesting, right, is you look at a comparison between him and Matty Knies. Very different styles of player, both on the same age curve, and Stankoven got more years at less value. And I think the one thing that Stankoven does really well that is going to flourish this year, especially and beyond, is his ability to drive the play. not a lot of guys down on the third and fourth lines in this day and age are able to drive the play like Stan Coven. And I think, as a 2C behind Sebastian Aho, I think that's something that Carolina's always been looking for in their 2C, right? Like, is somebody who's going to be able to drive the offense directly from there and feed all those goal scorers they have, right? You've got Svechnikov, you've got Nikolai Ehlers now, and Jackson Blake, who they've also re-signed for a long-term deal, who they seem to really like as well. You think about those guys with Aho and Jarvis in your top six for the next 4 or 5 years. You absolutely love to hear that top six core. And then we haven't talked about the back end yet, but Alexander Nikishin is ready to go, and I think he's going to take a huge step. I think he has been ready to play in the NHL for probably 2 years now. He's been stuck over in Russia playing in the K, but I think at 23 years old, like, he's going to come in here. This is going to be an unbelievable year for him. He's got an opportunity to take over that top spot on the right side next to Slavin. I think that's going to be an unbelievable pairing to pair up with that forward crew. So if the goaltending can hold and stay healthy, which Freddie Anderson hasn't done in probably 13 years, I think it's going to be a really deep playoff run this year for Carolina once again, and maybe they have what it takes to get over the top finally.
You just hit two of the major points that I was going to jump on, one of them being the back end, and especially Alexander Nikishin, because K'Andre Miller is the big ad. Nikishin was there the entire playoffs, didn't really get the opportunity coming in, new system, coming from the KHL, doesn't speak English, but the games he got in, he was unbelievable, especially against the Capitals, playing in a lockdown, shutdown role. And now this is his chance to really dive in. He's going to get the minutes. He's going to probably be on that second pair with Jalen Chatfield, and maybe get some power play time. They're saying he could be a Cal McCarr style skating player, and in just 2, 3, 4 playoff games, I think he had 2 or 3, but the ones he played in, he was 100% noticeable in each of those games. Jackson Blake is the other major piece for me, and it comes on a guy that put up 24 points this season, but really got better and better and better as the season went. Wasn't even supposed to be on the team at the start of the year when they came into camp, showed the staff that he deserved to be there, and then really proved that throughout the year. And he was, I would say, their best player throughout the playoff run that brought them to the conference final. They get him at 8 years and just an AAV of 5.625. And then you add to that the Stankoven contract, right around $6 million for the next 8 years. Those guys are locked in. Both of those guys are young talents that are, only scratching the surface of what they're going to be on the NHL side. And then you've got the core locked up. Svechnikov's the most near-term side of that. He's got 4 years left still on his 8-year term. Aho's locked up for 6 more years. They got Ehlers for 6 more years. Jarvis's 8-year contract just goes into effect coming up this year. And they still have $10 million of cap space to go out. So you think about the opportunity there in terms of maybe going and grabbing a rental player to add to that front end. They've got all kinds of prospects. Bradley Nadeau hopped in at the end of the season, and he looked outstanding as a guy who played power play minutes there in the couple games he played when they were on that Canada swing end of the regular season. Stood out in the AHL with the Wolves. He's NHL ready. Unfortunately, it looks like there's not really a spot on this team to get him in. I wonder if that could come maybe towards the trade deadline as a guy you move off of just because your team's so deep at this point. They've got a large prospect pool, and Matt, maybe the first time ever we've agreed on something to this extent, that the Carolina Hurricanes are going to be good upcoming and very exciting now being down in the area here. And the Utah Mammoth is the next team that you wanted to bring out. So we're going East Coast all the way to the West here, and we'll close it off, finishing where we started with the other side of the Stanley Cup rematch. But first, on the Utah side, the big news was the trade for JJ Peterka. Tell me what impressed you most on the Utah side before we get into the mess that has been the Sabres side of it.
Well, yeah, that's definitely. I mean, I think I just don't know why the Sabres would do this. I think it's just another player who I see leaving Buffalo and then totally flourishing once they're gone, even more. And he's only 23 years old too. He He has all the potential, I think, to be a 30 goal scorer in this league. He's already gotten pretty close to that. He had 27 last year on a pretty bad team. So I think when you have young guys that can score goals, and he's a big, strong winger, power forward, I think just hats off to Utah for getting that done. 5 years too that he's going to be locked in there. So at the end of that deal, he's going to be 28. I think he'll fit in well there. And then they obviously had a some luck going into the draft too. We can talk about that too, and just how well that they are set up for success for the future. The young players that are coming into Utah and just building this young core, it's going to be an exciting team to watch. But Peterka, definitely, that's a huge get for them, and a tough pill to swallow for Sabres fans also.
I'll play the devil's advocate side here on the Buffalo side for you. I'll put a little disagreement back into the market here, because I think a lot of people are on the side of what the hell is Buffalo doing. But, you think about the last 10 or so years where they haven't been making the playoffs, and all they've been doing is giving a ton of term and a ton of money to these young guys, thinking, can they take a step up? Can they take a step up? And time again, most of them have not, right? You think about, Tage Thompson's at a point where, yes, very good player, but what's he done in Buffalo, right? When they gave the contract to Reinhart, obviously he's flourishing in Florida now, but when he was in Buffalo, it really didn't work out. Owen Power still really hasn't gone into his footing now. Darlene's a great player, but you think about how many more guys are you going to sit and wait on until you finally go and, shake this core up? It really needs a complete shakedown. So for every team that we're applauding, right? We talked about the Islanders earlier and how excited we were that they were, shaking the core up and trying something new. Well, Buffalo's done the whole, let's just be young and see if we can just put guys in roles they're not ready for and see what happens phase. And it's time and time now worked out. So I at least appreciate that they're trying to do something. Now, is Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan the answer to that question? Probably not. But I think they're at least making moves to at least shake it up and do something different. I don't know how long Kevin Adams is going to have a job, but I think when you're at that point in his career where nothing's been working, it's time to shake things up and just start throwing darts at the board and go in Hail Mary and maybe something with it for him.
See, there's a major issue with their argument, and that's that getting too young doesn't work. Both guys they go out and get are brand new to the NHL. Kesselring was impressive in Utah last year. I do like that piece of it, but Doan's a guy that got kind of sent down to the AHL, hasn't really proven himself. Right now, he's slotted in to be a third-line guy on this team, and they just have not added to the front end. Your top six right now is Zach Benson, Yuri Kulik, Tage Thompson, Jason Zucker, Josh Norris, Alex Tuck. And you think about the injury concerns first off in that top six. But I would say to the fact of two or three of those names could be playing third, fourth line roles on Stanley Cup teams.
I see your point there, but I guess, who the hell is going to Buffalo? Like who wants to go sign in that organization at this point? The opportunities to go play. If I'm a UFA and the options are, Florida, California, Dallas, right? Like all these amazing places to go play and the whole idea of the state income tax. And then my other option is Buffalo. Like I love the city, but as somebody as a close local, I love the city, but I can't see myself being like, yeah, that's where I want to be the next 5-6 years.
See, I hear that a lot, but that can only be so much of a crutch, because I Winnipeg isn't exactly a destination city either, and you look at the team that they have had. Like I do think that it was to Casey's point too. Like I feel like you can only get younger, like you can only go through the rebuild so often, and I think the Sabres fans, they really want to have players that are going to make them better right now. And I will say the one thing I like, I mean, we've talked about Kesselring, and they really do need a right shot defenseman. Their three best defensemen are all lefties, so at least they have that. But I still just, I had a Sabres fan text me like the day that happened, and he said like, someone just like lie to me and tell me why trading JJ Peterka was good. Like it's just so hard to sell it to the fan base. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out though.
The thing about Winnipeg, though, I'm going to say one thing here. The thing about Winnipeg, though, how many of those guys are signings, and how many of them are homegrown development and good coaching and good systems in place, right? If you got a gone show of a coach and you've got a terrible system in place and you're putting guys in bad situations, you're not doing things that are going to help them develop as players, right? Like, for example, I think Zach Benson will be fine in the long term, but is it really smart to put an 18-year-old on the third line and second power play in the NHL when he's not ready? Probably not. I think it's one of those things where they just need to really take a step back and figure out, right, it's not just this year, and it's not getting guys in the best, like in the best state of hockey, right? Like getting people in the NHL quick is not always the answer. And I just think some of the decision making they've made on who they hold back versus who they let go through has been very questionable. And I think that's more of the reason why you're starting to see a disparity in their talent.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds while I talk here to pull up the lines chart of the Buffalo Sabres for the next question here. And Owen is going to understand as we get him into our fantasy hockey rankings, your style as a general manager when things start to flounder as you get late to the season and desperation times. Looking at Ditsy's dogs at the top of the rankings and trying to figure out ways to get up there. If you're the general manager right now, Rochester apparently is your move to send guys there and develop. What are you doing to make this roster better? And I think Krebs is going to have a lot of eyes on him. He's the one guy that spent a lot of time down there, has developed. They've had success in Rochester, and now is going to get his chance potentially to get the call up.
Yeah, and I think you've got to really step up in a big way. I think if you're the GM here, though, like you're in a spot where you're still paying Jeff Skinner $4.5 million this year, right? That's not money you want to be paying to somebody who hasn't played for your team in over 3 years, right? You're giving $6 million to a goalie core that's Ukko-Pekka Lehkonen and Alex Lyon, which again, there are plenty. Like Carolina is spending less money on their tandem, right? I think there's just been some decisions that are really tough to get yourself out of. Not impossible, right? But you still have $6 million in cap space. You have some guys on your roster that all do very similar things, and I think that might have been some of the reason Peterka left, right? A lot of guys who are, secondary scorers, who are very good players, don't get me wrong, but until you get somebody who's going to actually drive the play, it's going to be really tough to score on offense, right? Like Tage Thompson isn't the biggest driver of the play, right? He gets a lot of stuff in front of the net. He has got a great shot, don't get me wrong, but like if you look at this forward core, who's the one who's making the plays happen on this? I think that's your biggest hole right now, and it's not an easy thing to go find, right? But you think about the guys that they moved on from ever since Eichel, right? Like Jack Eichel was the answer to that question of who's going to be a guy who's going to drive your offense, play 22 minutes a night, and just because he wanted to do a specific surgery to his own body, they decided, yeah, no, he's not our guy.
Yeah, it's just going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, and if Utah is able to, have a big season this year and they're able to sneak into the playoffs, and JJ Peterka has a 30-goal season, I feel for Sabres fans who just kind of have to watch these players that just kind of, and he put up like pretty productive numbers, like considering the season that this team had. I mean, I'm looking at 77 games, 68 points. And that's like, he's 23 years old. So like I think he's got a lot of
on a floundering team too.
Yeah.
Arguably their best player.
Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy.
All right, back to the Mammoth to close that side of it off. And Owen, two things that will continue here is going to be the championship droughts of both the Buffalo Sabres and Matt as a fantasy general manager. But going back to Utah, what most impressed you again outside of that Peterka trade? And then also, is this a team ready to make that jump? When you look at the top six that they've got going now, all of a sudden adding Peterka in and also on the back end too, you get Tanev to the bottom six, but it's Keller, Cooley, Gunther, who was a standout last year and really blew the water off Utah quickly there. Schmaltz, Hayton, and Peterka on the second line to round it out.
Yeah, I just think they're young and they're getting deep. And so you asked what impressed me. I think also adding Nate Schmidt a Stanley Cup champion to kind of, add some leadership to a team that's still pretty young. That's a good add on the back end, but I think their depth up front is really, really impressive, and they got a lot of really good young players. Like that first line of Gunther, Cooley, Keller, like that's going to be a lethal combination. You add JJ Peterka to this top six, and then I mean they had some great fortune in the draft too, getting the guy that led the QMJHL in scoring in Caleb Desnoyers, and then they go on to win a QMJHL title, and just having him in the system now, and that pipeline of young talent, it just improves so much. So I think this Mammoth team is really going to be a team to look out for in years to come. But the excitement that they generated over the course of the latter part of this past season, how they were in the mix until like a week and a half, 2 weeks left in the season. They were kind of in that playoff mix. And now that pool of young talent grows, and then the addition of a guy like Schmidt on the back end too, who just won a Stanley Cup, that's going to help them a lot also.
We kicked it off with the three-peat Panthers, and now we'll end our NHL discussions here on the Edmonton Oilers. Looking at the juniors rankings and prospects, Edmonton with a massive trade. They pick up Isaac Howard and sign him after Howard announced he was going back to Michigan State. All the troubles in Tampa where they were going to send him to the AHL to start. Well, he's going to be in the Edmonton roster, and kind of big time for a team right up to the cap, needing a league minimum guy that can be a difference maker like Howard has the potential to be. But they give up Sam O'Reilly, a top touted talent there. Is this a way that Edmonton maybe saved their offseason? Because up to that point, they got Bouchard done without having to go to arbitration. That's still a $10.5 million contract for the next 4 years, probably only going to grow at that rate for an offensive defenseman to the caliber that Bouchard has showed to be. They also maybe wasted a deal almost on Trent Frederick, 8 years, $30.8 million, maybe one of the biggest head scratchers of the last couple of years in off seasons there. A guy who probably could have gone for either low term at that value or less, or that term for maybe close to $1 million. He gets both, so credit Trent Frederick's agent. But up to the point of the Howard trade, Edmonton was looking like one of the big losers of this offseason. Now Howard comes in and kind of a fresh look for that Edmonton offense.
Yeah, and a much younger look, right? You think about him, but you also think about Matt Savoy, who they got last year for Ryan McLeod from Buffalo. You're going to get a couple of pieces that you could start to piece together with that top six and not have to heavily rely on, getting some veterans that are going to go put scoring. I think last year the answer was, we'll go get Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson, and it didn't really work out the way they wanted to. So this year they're like, all right, let's get younger. Let's show McDavid that this isn't something that's just going to be a one-year thing. We're going to get guys who are young, who are going to continue to get better, and this entire offense is going to grow together. I think it'd be really interesting to see how they piece these together and figure out what this top nine looks like. But I think the one thing that scares me still is the back end, right? I think you got two guys in Bouchard and Nurse who are a little scary from a defensive standpoint. You got a puck mover in Jake Wallman, and then it's a scary bottom pair, and then you never answer the goaltending question. It's been a question for 3 years now. You still don't have McDavid locked up, and I'm sure he's wondering, what the hell are we doing back there? I'm helping the team put up 4 goals a game, and we're giving up 5, right? Like, it's going to be interesting to see if they end up making a move around the goaltending and the defense, because I definitely think there's areas of improvement. Like you said, they're right at the cap, so there's not a lot of wiggle room to go and do that. But, they're an injury during the season away from freeing up a little bit of cap space and being able to solidify somebody on the back end and kind of add to that defensive depth that seems to be the key piece here for Edmonton.
So goaltending too, because that's been kind of the talk about the offseason, is that the Oilers need to upgrade in net. But like, if you guys are thinking about like what they could possibly do, what they could go out and do, like in net to upgrade their situation, like what would you do? I
mean, John Gibson went for a second. Like you have a second round pick for John Gibson, right? Like I would much rather go in there with John Gibson and Calvin Pickard than Stewie this year. And I think there's probably plenty of teams like I think the Sharks gave Nedeljkovic $2.5 million to take a chance on that. I'm sure they'd pick up an extra $100K to take a chance on a guy like Skinner, who's shown games in the playoffs where he's been very, very good. If every game was game 4, I would bet every dollar I had on the Oilers. But unfortunately, they only get that once a series. So I think there are definitely opportunities. But I think they just decided to continue to build around McDavid on the front end, which, we'll see if it works this year, but it hasn't the last 2.
I couldn't disagree farther on that comment with the cap issues that are already there. You know how I feel about big paid goalies, although Bobrovsky has shoved that one to me back-to-back years. You've got 2 guys that are clearly good enough. You can't even come close to saying that they're not because they've been to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. Pickard is a great backup goalie, and Skinner's had enough to get it done. And I don't think you can even come close to blaming Skinner for the reason they didn't win 2 years ago, because that was just as much their cup to win as they lost it. 1 goal in the Stanley Cup final, clinching Game 7 for a potent offense there, and he did his job on that side. Sure, this year maybe a little bit worn, but also some injuries that were thrown in there. He was in and out of the lineup. That's why Pickard had to get the start in the first place. Then he got hurt, kind of going back and forth. I still think for the cap hit that they're at, considering the situation that they're in, which is only going to get worse to the next talking point here, those 2 guys, if they keep making you to the Stanley Cup final, ride with them until you can get enough offense to get there for me. And again, to the point of what's going to get worse on the cap, Connor McDavid has not signed an extension yet. No contract. And as Frank Saravalli reported earlier today, no discussions either. A year from now, is Connor McDavid an Edmonton Oiler?
That's a loaded question. It's hard to think not, right? Like, I think Edmonton's the only team that can give him that 8-year deal. This is the last year where you're able to give out the 8-year deal, so he'll be able to get an extra year there. That'll bring him to his age 37 season, and I'm sure he'll still be playing at a very strong pace there, but he's not going to get 16, 17 mil on a bridge deal and going through his prime. So I think in terms of the amount of money they can give him, they're the team in the driver's seat. They did a lot this offseason to move some pieces around, like Evander Kane and Victor Arvidsson, to open up, $20 million in cap space just in their forward crew next year. So I think they have the money to do it, and it's just a matter of Connor McDavid. They hand Connor McDavid a blank check. He writes a number, they sign it. I think it'd be an unbelievable mistake if they thought otherwise for a guy who is such a dynamic player. And we talk about Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard getting them to the Cup final. No, it was Connor McDavid who got them to the Cup final the last 2 years, and it will continue to be Connor McDavid who will get them as far as he can take them. So I think it's a no-brainer.
Leon Draisaitl was the top name on the Conn Smythe list for quite a ways through that run.
And not to say that McDavid's not the guy, no, like it's both of them, right? And they've locked him up for 14 mil the next 6 years, but 6 to 8 years. But I think if you don't give him a blank check, you're making almost a bigger mistake than when they traded Gretzky.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's little doubt that I think he's going to be an Edmonton Oiler. I think the bigger question for me is, when do they get this done? Because you don't want to let it linger and be a distraction and have the chatter by the deadline. Like, I do think it's a little bit concerning that there haven't really been discussions to move the needle. But do you guys see this getting done in the off season before the season starts, or do you think that this is something that will drag out?
I think it goes to July 1st next year. And he made a pretty clear point in the press conference he had before he's hit vacation and Draisaitl's honeymoon and all that contract negotiations are nowhere near his mind. I think he stays an Oiler as well. I think his wife and his family are pretty well established in the area there. But I wonder if, depending on how it goes here, a lot of new faces, there's a lot that could go wrong if he's going to hold it out and then on the Edmonton side, you got to wonder if they want him to sign, and you would think obviously they would. If he's holding out when it gets to the Rantanen phase come end of February, early March, is McDavid the name that's on the move? Matt, I will also rebuttal there. They traded Gretzky in '88 and won the cup 2 years later.
I mean, yeah. Once you get to the playoffs, it's anyone's game. But I'm telling you, I think they probably are a better team in the '90s than Wayne Gretzky than without him. No,
They won the cup without him. And he had 4 cups before they traded him. McDavid still hasn't gotten one.
But they never would have gotten to the final without him. Or that. So I see what you're saying, but I also think like he's been so central to without McDavid, that Oilers team are they even a playoff team? Well, like I don't know. Maybe yeah.
Did you think about that 12.5 million he's on right now and giving that to a Connor Garland and a Brock Besser like the Canucks did, and removing McDavid from the Edmonton Oilers roster and putting Connor Garland and Brock Besser? Do you consider them a playoff team? You think Draisaitl's good enough to at least get them there?
I also think they had one of the worst off seasons this year. I don't think the Canucks are going to be anywhere near it here. No, I'm on the side. I would do everything I could to sign him. I don't think it's going to help their cap problems, but I would also argue with McDavid there. Think about how awful the Oilers were, and we just got done talking about the Buffalo Sabres, but for so long, Edmonton was not a place anyone wanted to go. No one wanted to sign in Edmonton. And you can credit Connor McDavid and Draisaitl for what they've done, making Edmonton a destination place for free agents. So I'm certainly on the side that McDavid and Edmonton is a good thing for the Oilers. It's definitely going to be fun to watch the drama, though, as we come down. A couple other names as we close it off here. We've got Haley Winn upcoming, an interview from earlier last month, the number 2 overall draft pick in the PWHL, and then some college hockey talk and NIL business to close this one off. But a few names still out there. Marco Rossi, formerly with the Minnesota Wild, still unsigned here. Luke Hughes, with his rights being held by the Devils, not on a contract, and Mason McTavish. Which of those names are you guys highlighting the most here, as we've got a couple of months or month and a half now until the season gets going here, until preseason really locks in?
The big question mark for me is Marco Rossi, especially for a team like the Wild, who this is the first time that they've had some salary cap in quite some time. They've been pretty tied up between the cap not going up very much and having the buyouts of both Suter and Parise on the books. This is year one of them being cleansed of all of that, and they still got their 2C that's kind of just still in the wings of being unsigned as an RFA. I think it'll be really interesting to see how long that drags out and what they decide to do there. I'm not sure if he's proven to be a player that you give a long-term extension, but I think a bridge deal is something that's a little too hefty of a price based on what he's been asking for in the media. So I think it'll be very interesting to see when that gets settled. And I think, for a team that has the cap space, it's really interesting to see the decisions that they're making to be a little frugal on that front. But if they don't, I think there's still a big hole in that 2C spot for Minnesota. So I think, as the time has gone on and players have signed elsewhere, it might end up having to be the trade market to look and fill that gap if Rossi's not the answer.
Mm-hmm. I think the Luke Hughes situation is going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And, when they get that done, it sounds like they want to sign him to an 8-year deal. But I think it's interesting because Quinn has come out and said that, he wants to play with his brothers, and just, I do wonder, like, if any team were to make it work, the Devils seem like the most likely one to do that. When, they can go and get Quinn, but I am kind of curious, like, what you guys think of the Luke Hughes situation and, what he ends up getting.
This is nowhere near what's going to happen or anywhere that's been reported, so you can write my name on this quote. But the Hughes brothers have the greatest opportunity in tampering history right now. Can you imagine Luke Hughes goes out this offseason and signs a league minimum for 8 years, and then they go in and bring Quinn Hughes in for, big dollars, and then just trade money, and everyone averages that out at the dinner table playing poker in the summer. They Not that that's going to happen in any world, but that would be an all-time case of tampering to try to get Quinn Hughes over to New Jersey.
It would be that'd be a story, that's for sure. I don't know. I don't know if I'd share my money with my sister. I think if I earn my contract, I might keep my extra couple $100,000 on my pockets, and especially with the New Jersey taxes, I might have to keep that to pay to stay in a house out there.
Well, with the Leonardo family being a big chunk of our following, we don't need any family drama started here. So I might have to edit that piece out of the contract. I don't think there's any way Luke Hughes would leave the situation, especially, I mean, they would know better than any of the media that would be reporting it. But if there's a chance that they could reunite all three of them together, the big piece of that starts with getting Luke Hughes done, because you would think if he gets dealt, or if he has any potential of signing anywhere else, there's no reason Quinn would leave the situation he's got out in Vancouver, unless that becomes one where Vancouver has put themselves in a tough spot here and kind of falls off the map. We're going to send it over to Haley Winn now. Again, the number 2 overall draft in the PWHL, headed to Boston upcoming for the next season here, in season 3 in the new women's hockey league that's been so successful. She'll talk about training camp, looking forward to the 2026 Olympics, and a little bit more about the PWHL draft process. Then the three of us are back and closing it off with college hockey and the NIL deals with Gavin McKenna, ready to face Clarkson University in his first ever college game in the whiteout down in Apple Valley. Back in a moment. You're listening to the Fifth Liners Hockey Podcast. It's my pleasure to welcome our first 2-time guest back to the show, a PWHL first round, second overall draft pick, and now 2-time world champion in the IIHF, Haley Winn. Haley, what's happening?
Not much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Fresh off the ice, rocking the next level gear. Summer training full in effect here. What's the summer have in store? Pretty busy for you. You're going to be kind of traveling all over the country now that you're a big shot future Hall of Famer.
No, I mean, yeah, kind of busy summer, but also just a longer off season. Obviously, the PWHL, I won't really have to report to training camp until like mid-November, so I have a long summer. I don't know. I think it'll go pretty fast, though. I think I'll head back up to school, up to Clarkson, to train for a few weeks. Kind of just be home in Rochester, have a few camps here and there. Have camps August, September, October. So I think that'll make things fly by. Probably go down to Toronto for a bit. So kind of all over the place. But yeah, Rochester will be home base.
The last time we talked and had you on the show, you were in the rivalry series and kind of looking forward to a potential IIHF bid. That happened, and that resulted in a gold medal. How about the experience there, going out to Europe, winning some more change? Now you have 2 gold medals to bring home.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Obviously, it was my first world championship kind of in Europe. Obviously, my first ones were in Brampton and Utica, which was super cool, but it was definitely cool to kind of go pretty far, go to Czech, and I had some family that was able to make it too, which made it even more special. But the whole experience was incredible. I mean, the Czech fans were, I've only been in USA and Canada for these, so like obviously the fans are crazy, but like Czech fans, like they were a next level, and it was always packed, especially against the Czech games, and it was just super cool. It was a super cool atmosphere. The area was nice. It was cool to explore, and obviously winning gold at the end was worth it.
As you mentioned, you got to kind of explore Europe a little bit. What were some of the favorite parts off the ice from that trip out there?
I think just we stayed in like a really small town. I don't even know what it's called, but it was like 20 minutes away from the rink, and it was like a tiny town. Like there was a huge famous castle, so you could like walk up to that. But I think just walking around the town and our friends and family were in the hotel next door, so we got to hang out with them a lot. And I think just exploring with the girls, being able to kind of, I think, as I've gone, this is my third World Championship, kind of learning how to separate on the ice from off the ice and not always being consumed by the on-ice portion. Obviously, you're there to play hockey, but I think it was good to kind of get away from it and be able to explore, and that helps your game on the ice. So I think I was able to do a better job of that this time, and yeah, just kind of stay present where I was, but just exploring with friends and family.
Well, the Winn fan base is one of the greatest traveled sports communities. For those who haven't been around a team that Haley Winn plays on, the Boston Fleet probably just doubled in fan base size after this draft. The transition from college to the offseason, it was a tough finish. You guys were kind of fortunate to grab a tournament bid, but heartbreak in the ECAC tournament. And then you win an NCAA tournament game and made a run at topping the eventual champions in Wisconsin. Talk about kind of your end of your college career and the mindset going forward as you hit this offseason, kind of readying yourself for the draft.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my 4 years went by way too quick, but the last year was amazing. Obviously, it didn't end up how we wanted it to, but I think it was probably the most like up and down year. Obviously, we had some tough weekends, and with it being it's such a short season, like you can't really afford those tough weekends. So we definitely had a lot of adversity as a team, but I think that kind of drew us closer. I think this was one of our closest knit teams, and having the opportunity to be a leader was obviously super fortunate to do that. I mean, Clarkson just has so much history as a program, so being able to be a leader was super special. And yeah, like making a run for it at the end, like we really had, like you said, we had to work for a bit, and we had to work for a lot of things just to get in the tournament or like our series against QPAC. Like if we lost that, our season was over. So I think we had to work for every inch, and that's what made it cool. And it was really cool to have a role that played a big impact. And yeah, again, like I said, it obviously didn't end how we wanted it to, but it's just every time you put on that jersey, it's so special. So I'm really sad that it came to an end. But coming to the off season, it's definitely a hard adjustment. I think just like I was talking to my family about it. It's like I committed to Clarkson in grade 9, and I knew that I was going, to BK, my high school, for 4 years. So it's like in grade 9, I knew what my life was looking like for the next 8 years. I was going to the same high school, and then I was going to Clarkson. So it's like now is the first time where like there's a little bit of uncertainty. Obviously, I now know that I'm going to Boston, but obviously don't know how long my contract's going to be, any of that. So it's definitely a little uncertainty and unknown coming to the off season. So I've really been trying to just focus on staying present, taking it day by day, and focusing on my training, really doing what I can do. And obviously having a long off season, I don't get to be home for an extended period of time like I am. So just not taking that for granted. And it's hard. Obviously, we had text like my college teammates and friends every day, but being best friends with them, living with them for 4 years straight, and then obviously not knowing when the next time we're going to see each other it's tough. But yeah, just a lot of adjusting. But obviously, there's exciting stuff to come in the future, so I'm looking forward to that.
All that hard training and tight-knit community brought you some in-season tournament championships with the Adirondack and Nashville for Clarkson. You guys had a regional NCAA championship that brought you to the Frozen Four. Obviously, the 2 gold medals we talked about. You were welcomed onto the intramural team, the Ditsy's Dogs franchise, and won an intramural championship, maybe the biggest accomplishment of your career. Where would you order those titles on your career achievements list?
Oh gosh, that's a tough ask. I know you'd want me to put my intramurals win at the top. I was telling Ditz, because Ditzel took his intramurals GM job super serious, which I respect. I was just trying to go out there and have fun. Hockey is serious for me. I have so much fun playing, but it's kind of serious all the time. So I was just looking to go have a fun time at intramurals, and Ditz is like yelling at me when I'm like on the court. So that's got to be at the bottom of my list, but still a really big achievement. I don't know. As far as like Clarkson, I mean, that game against Minnesota, that regional game to go to the Frozen Four, that's got to be. I don't even think you can rank them, but that is something I will never forget in quadruple overtime. And obviously winning my first world championship and then the second one this past year. You can't even rank them, but yeah, just super blessed.
And maybe it's because Haley missed the regular season on LTIR while she was competing with Team USA that the Dogs franchise victory doesn't mean as much. Let's go to the draft. And a couple weeks ago here, maybe the biggest moment of your career. Your name was all over the PWHL accounts, the New York Times, the New York Post, everybody talking about Haley Winn and the potential future that you have. What does that mean to you as someone who grew up playing boys hockey, grew up with, maybe question marks about how far you could take your journey in the game of hockey, where your brothers were, trying to make the NHL, trying to play high level men's college hockey, to now see the impact that you're going to have on young girls, and playing as a professional, the only win to make it to that PWHL NHL stage that I joked with your brothers at the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy because like this is something obviously I've dreamt of since I was little. Not necessarily, I mean, yeah, playing as hockey as long as I can. Obviously, the league wasn't a thing when I was younger, but going to the Olympics and just like hoping to play hockey as long as I can, and obviously with the league making that possible, it's a really cool time for women's hockey, and I'm super fortunate to be obviously just coming up in this time. But I think it's crazy to think that, I don't know, like you said, like inspiring younger girls and whatever, there's articles in newspapers. It's like it's just so normal to just like go to the rink and work hard and have fun at it and do these things that you kind of like, you don't realize you're in the midst of your dreams. Like this is obviously everything I've prayed for and dreamt of, and representing my country and playing professional hockey. It's all things that are on your dream card, but it's like when you're in it, you don't even realize like how much of an impact you're having or like what you're actually accomplishing. Like even at the draft, looking back, like it was such a surreal moment, obviously, like hearing your name called and knowing like there'll never be anything like that to happen again. I hope to play in the league for as long as I can, but I'll never get drafted again. I could get traded, I could whatever, but it's like I'll never have my first draft. So it's just like moments like those are so special, but it's like you don't realize the impact you're having because it's like this is just what your life has been, is playing hockey and having fun. And so I think obviously that's just what I want to continue to do, because that's why you play, is just to have fun. And obviously I've been super blessed to be put in this position, but just using this platform the best I can to inspire girls, spread my faith, whatever that might be. And I'm just super fortunate with where it's taken me.
Well, lead me up to the draft here. You had a shoot with CCM. They're posting you all over with your USA gear, getting ready for the draft. You have the purple carpet ceremony with fans screaming, everybody asking for your autograph, and then your whole family, a lot of your friends, your coaches, all in the arena to watch that.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I think it was a little more stressful than I thought it was going to be, to be totally honest. I think like day of, I mean, once you're in the draft, like once you're in it's exciting, and 100% when your name's called, it's like nothing but excitement and all stress, whatever. You're fine, but it's like leading up to it, I thought I guess I thought I was going to have a better idea of like where I was going. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty set. Like, and then you don't want to get your hopes up. So it's just like morning of, it was like the longest day of my life. I was like so anxious, and I didn't really know what was happening. I mean, you're still having conversations with like GMs and coaches like morning of. So it's like you're trying to get a read. They're trying to get a read. So you really you have no idea until your name's called. So it was definitely a little stressful leading up, but then like when you're getting dressed and you're getting ready, it's just so exciting. And then obviously getting to walk the purple carpet, have so many friends and family there. And then, yeah, I mean, be there with my whole family and even obviously like teammates like Goss and Ann. And, I've played with them for 4 years. They're two of my best friends. So to be able to be there with them, and obviously have you and Jake and so many Clarkson people there, it just shows like what a supportive and community and just base we have at Clarkson, and obviously having family there. And yeah, when your name's called, I mean, I'm just so excited to be in Boston. It worked out exactly how it was supposed to, and I can't wait to get started there. But as soon as you get drafted, it's like you go backstage and you do media for like 2 hours. Like, I had no idea who was drafted in the first like 3-4 rounds of the draft, because it's like you just miss everything. But it was super cool. Like, it was just such a cool experience. And yeah, it gives me like chills thinking back to it. But
I had goosebumps walking around that floor, and the production of that whole night was unbelievable with TSN, the Jocks and Jills podcast there, and the elite level of coverage, and the show that they put on there was a lot of fun to watch, and especially with, as you mentioned, 3 of our team going in the top 9 picks. Talk about that media tour, and first walk me through the emotions. You get picked, your name gets called, you walk up there, and then, as you mentioned, for about 2-3 hours you just disappear, and they're taking every picture. You said you were almost sick of smiling by the end of the night by the time you got back to have to be interviewed by me.
yeah, no, it was obviously when your name's called, like, I mean, my heart was just beating so fast for like the first pick. Again, like, you have no idea what's gonna happen until it happens. So I get picked to Boston. I'm like so ecstatic, so happy. Obviously, have a few friends on that team, and I just think like their culture, they have such a good group there, and I'm so excited. But then, yeah, after, it's like I hug my family once, and then I don't see them for like 3 hours. So like, you go backstage and you do an interview right away, and then like after that, there's a trade. Like, the third pick gets traded. Toronto trades it to New York. So I'm like trying to peek around people. I'm like, what is happening? And then I like obviously want to see who's getting drafted. So then like you do that, and I met all like the Boston media people, and they were like by my side through the whole thing. And then like you're doing another interview with like a bunch of people, and there's like a TV behind them. So I'm like trying to focus on the questions that they're asking me, while like looking at the TV, trying to see who's getting drafted. And then, yeah, you just go back, and I mean, like a million pictures and interviews, and it was super cool. But yeah, my cheeks were definitely sore from smiling.
When you look back on that night, what stands out that's going to be kind of the most memorable, aside from, walking up on the stage after being announced as the number 2 overall pick?
I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's like cliche, but I just feel like the people I was surrounded by, like just having my family there and so many friends. And it's like you never kind of stop moving. Like, even I got back to the couch, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I want to go say congrats to that person. I want to go say hi to that person. It's like, it's such a small hockey world that you're obviously just so happy to be there. And then you're so grateful to be surrounded by so many amazing people, and obviously having my family there. And then, yeah, I just, the whole thing, like, I don't even think like one thing specifically stands out to me. And to be totally honest, I don't even know like if it's sunk in yet, because it's like I don't go till November, which is kind of like sad. You're on this high, and you can't wait to get started, and then you just come home and you're like, all right, I got 5 months to prepare for that. But yeah, just like the whole night, and it was awesome.
November's a little ways away, as you mentioned. So where does the training regiment go from? You're known for being a rink rat, killing the numbers on the automatic shooting machine. Now you're back home right now, and you're going to be going up to school. You said, where does the training regiment go from here to November to prepare yourself to play on that PWHL stage, the national stage, and hopefully coming up this year, the Olympic stage?
Yeah, definitely a lot of adjusting for me, because I definitely, like, I obviously just love hockey. I love work. I love being in the gym. I love being on the ice. So it's definitely an adjustment to me, because I can't be on the ice 5 days a week. Like, it's just not, it wouldn't be realistic for me to be on the ice 5 days a week in July when I don't play till November. So definitely a lot of adjustments. I took probably the most time I've ever taken off the ice from Worlds until whatever, probably mid-June, just because like that you can't start that early. It's just like so hard to train for that long. So that was hard, but I tried to stay busy. I was like traveling, and went to visit a lot of people, which is cool because I don't really have the opportunity when I'm having to train and get on the ice and stuff. So it was cool to have that time off. And yeah, now I'm home in the summer, and I'm still trying to kind of take it slow. I'm skating 3 times a week. my workout plan's 5 times a week, but trying to just kind of ease into it. But, it's hard, and I'm really excited to go back up to school in Clarkson, but I know that's going to be even more difficult when there's just open ice every day that you can go on and having to kind of restrict yourself. And but it'll be so fun to have people around me that'll push me and the rest of the summer. So I'll be up at Clarkson for most of July, and then there's a USA camp the first week of August. So I'll be there in August. The rest of August is kind of up in the air. I think I'll head down or up to Toronto sometime August, September, and then there's another camp in September and another camp in October, and then a rivalry series in November. So, yeah, I think seems long. I think it'll go quicker than I envision. But yeah, just kind of keeping my mindset positive, obviously, through this. And it's like, it's hard at home because I'm training with a good group of guys and a few girls, but it's like they all leave in September or in August, end of August. So then it's like you've 2 months to just kind of be on your own. So I think that'll be tough, but I'll have good people to surround me and just keep my head sane.
Well, when Haley says she's easing into it, that probably means 4 plates on each side for the benches and squats. All right, so you're getting ready. November's upcoming. You're moving to Boston. You've been in Potsdam for 4 years, Rochester before that. This is maybe the biggest move you've had to make in your life. What are you most excited about as you get ready to be part of the fleet and head, quite literally, ship off to Boston?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm just excited and grateful to be able to play this game like as my career. Like I still can't believe that this is my job. And I went to the doctor the other day and I'd fill out what my occupation was, and I'm like, I literally play hockey. Like, it's crazy to think that this is actually happening. So, I mean, first off, obviously that's what I'm most excited about, just being able to play hockey as a job and kind of being able to solely focus on that and just doing what I love. But I'm super excited for the group of people. I think we have a really good group of girls. I mean, some of the girls I got drafted with, we've already talked about, rooming together and getting an apartment together. And obviously Boston's a little bigger than Potsdam. It'll be an adjustment, but I've heard so many good things. Like, everyone says that they love Boston. You fall in love with the city. I haven't heard one bad thing about it. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be nice to kind of have a little switch up and explore. And I think I'm going to have to pick up a hobby. I've been told that. I'm going to have to find something else to do but hang out at the rink. So any recommendations for that, definitely let me know. But yeah, I'm just excited for the whole experience.
Well, you got a long winter, but your golf swing might pick up a pretty good hobby. Anybody who hasn't hung around Haley, she's a heck of a golfer away from the ice. That
working
slap
on it.
shot translates nicely. Haley, appreciate all your time here, and hopefully you enjoy a lengthened summer. And it's a well-deserved one for you. We're very excited to watch you hit the ice upcoming in November, and your run to what's going to be a big hit at the Olympics, the future generation of stars coming up for USA Hockey.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Big thank you to Haley, big friend of the podcast. Now our first two-time guest here, two-time IIHF gold medalist and about to be an Olympian upcoming here in 2026. And maybe we'll have her as a 3-time guest after the U.S. wins gold in both men's and women's hockey. The college hockey landscape is about to continue to completely revolutionize, but maybe for the better at this point, and especially if you're a fan of Big Ten hockey. Gavin McKenna headed to Penn State, and right alongside Columbus Blue Jackets prospect Jackson Smith, Michigan State was in the running. Maybe a show we'll have coming down the road to talk with a couple of these coaches who were in on the conversations. But Michigan State loses out on the McKenna sweepstakes. They do, however, pick up Riker Lee and Porter Martone. So a couple exciting names headed there. Michigan's loading up, and the biggest name in maybe Disney sponsorship a few years down the line, Roger McQueen, headed to Providence. Owen, you're a college hockey guy. Maybe we'll go back to the background here and keep people learning about yourself. But headed to Vermont, you have a background in Beanpot style, a BU graduate. So obviously Hockey East has a special side of your heart. What are you most excited about here as we look to the upcoming season on the college side?
Well, I think there's so much to be excited about with the big names that you mentioned, but I think just the CHL rule change and everything that's going to do to just make college hockey grow. I think it's there this year. There's going to be more eyeballs on it than there's ever been, and just the game continues to grow. And McKenna playing at Penn State. I mean, that's where we can really start. I mean, it's been compared to like Crosby or McDavid in their draft year playing somewhere college hockey. Like that's the level of hype that some people have been describing this as. I think certainly Penn State's going to be much must-see TV all year long. So that's probably what I'm most excited about. Like we were talking about earlier, it's going to be interesting to see what this kind of does to the competitive balance of college hockey as a whole. But I think certainly Big Ten is where my eyes are going to be a lot, just with Penn State. You mentioned Michigan State loading up. Big Ten's going to be must-see TV.
Matt, we've been very critical, and it would be unfair to ask Owen this as a first timer here on the show, but when these rule changes first came out, we were pretty against what the NCAA was ruling on. It's starting to seem like for the game of hockey as a whole, this could be a good thing. And Owen mentioned competitive balance, definitely still hurting the small schools. But all of a sudden, you see a direct pathway for kids to go try the CHL, kids to go develop for that point, and also you're going to see a trickle down effect where a lot of these kids now can go get educations. Guys can go develop first before playing college hockey, which is going to make college hockey a hell of a lot more deeper than it used to be. But it also allows college hockey fans now to see the future talent of the NHL. Think about the revenue that college football brings in. All of a sudden, that kind of hype on a smaller scale for now, but the future has the possibility to really blow up on the college hockey side with now the game's best truly hitting the NCAA.
And you think about it from a development standpoint, a lot of guys are, especially on the European side, are getting pro level games over in Sweden or in Russia. And you think about the talent level that's over there, we're starting to be able, and definitely at a younger scale, but college hockey has become more and more comparable to those leagues, and it's going to only continue to grow the game in North America, especially in the United States, where a lot of these schools are obviously located, if not all of them. But I think in terms of the trickle-down situation that we think about, right, all the guys that, the Gavin McKennas and Jackson Smiths are taking over, guys who are on the third and fourth line of a Penn State team that made the Frozen Four last year, those are the guys that are going to go and play at Bowling Green and Miami, Ohio, and Clarkson and all these smaller schools. I think it's going to start to trickle down to where you're going to start to see, just a lot more skill across all of college hockey. And I think there's also more avenues outside of the CHL, right? Like U Sports is an interesting spot where there's a ton of older players who have had, they played in the CHL until they were 20, and maybe they weren't good enough to make the pro level yet, but they play a year or two in U Sports. They continue to develop, and now those 22, 23-year-olds, those veterans that a lot of the formula for national champions has been, is a lot of older players who have developed their skills for years now. Those guys are going to get opportunities to go and play in the NCAA now. So I think from a talent perspective, you're going to start to get to a point where, there's nowhere else to go. There's going to have to start to be, more teams that, that are at these high club levels that start to trickle over into that D1 territory. You think about in the Carolinas, Ditzel, where you're now located, that North Carolina NC State rivalry that continues to sell so many tickets year in and year out. You think of the Clemsons and the Tennessees and the Alabama Hockeys and all this fun SEC talk. Well, now we've got a brand new pool of players who you can see are going to bring in more revenue because of just how much talent they have. And you're getting, the opportunity to go get an education. Look what happened when Arizona State got a team, right? So many guys went down there to go play there just because of the loveliness of the school and being, down south and being able to play hockey. It's similar to why guys in the NHL go play in Tampa and Florida. So I think it's going to start to really change the landscape and start to grow the game more than we think about. And it might not take away the opportunities per se of others, but just give more chances for D1 hockey to become a huge thing in the U.S.
On that topic too, like, question for you guys, like, if there's one school, it could be a Southern school, that does not have a D1 team,
University of Kentucky.
you would like to see. Okay, University of Kentucky hockey.
South Carolina. I'm gonna steal. I know Matt's answer. His is completely biased.
Oh, you don't know my answer. I got a little wild card for you.
South Carolina would be cool because they won the national.
Matt's favorite team wears orange.
Okay.
Yeah, my parents are relocated in Tennessee, so I think they're big UT fans. I would love to see them get a college hockey team. But if you think about in terms of where the game is growing and where there could be a ton of money at the school, could you imagine if the Dallas Stars had a companion college hockey team for TCU?
Oh.
I think it'd be unbelievable to watch those purple jerseys skate around.
Complete wild card.
A school that obviously has a ton of money and a ton of funds that has rebuilt their football program over the last 10 years from nothing into something. What's to say that that school can't build a college hockey program and build off a success that Dallas has had there?
Mm-hmm.
I think SEC hockey is the future of college hockey. I would like to see. I think UNC is built for it right now. They just approved that brand new arena, but it's and I'll even go one further there at you, Owen. Here, who do you think is the first?
First, just the next
first to make the jump, or the next to make the jump.
I think NC State has a case. Like you guys were talking about. Well, I think what they call it, the Governor's Cup, where it's UNC and NC State, and I know they always fill the lower bowl at PNC. So a lot of students come out. It seems like they always do it on a Monday or a Tuesday. But I think NC State, I know they get their games on TV a lot. So I think hockey's really been growing a lot there, and that'd be a good one. But yeah, I think I'm with you guys with that. It's going to be a Southeast school. You mentioned University of South Carolina too. That's another good one because they recently won the national championship. Yeah, probably somewhere where it's just, I think you got to have the rink, and it's about the timing of building the rink. And, ASU, before they played in Mullet, they had to play at Oceanside for a little while, which is basically like a community rink. But you got to kind of go through that to start. But I think if a school has the funding to get into a really nice facility, you can see what that would do. I think SEC rivalry. So I mean that's what made college sports so great, the rivalry. So if you could get two in at the same time, that would be great.
A team that could do it by themselves. Dude, they'd be lovely, Ditzy. And they rarely sell them. Trust me, I go on their website all the time to go buy a Tennessee sweater with the checker print, and I never see one. But to answer your question, Owen, and the team that I do think is probably the next one to make the jump, you think about, right, you had mentioned if the SEC does it, you kind of want to hope that they do too. I think a team that could easily already create a rivalry with Arizona State. They have a rink that was recently built in 2018 for an expansion team, and they're a team that went and just beat Denver this past year in an exhibition game. Why would the Running Rebels of UNLV not be a viable next option?
I hate this argument. It's not. There's no way that you can call that a competitive win when they're missing half their team to World Juniors. Probably were at the bars the night before.
Ditzy, a win's a win. And I think they've been a very competitive ACHA team for at least a dozen years at this point. Those are the teams that jump next, right? You think about Lindenwood, you think about LIU. Like a lot of these teams that are jumping over are the ones that were super competitive in ACHA. And UNLV's had that established program for quite some time now.
And the Frozen Four is coming to Vegas this year.
What an announcement. What a place to announce it.
Yeah, they have the NHL backing there too. That's a sneaky good one. All
I've
right.
thought about this too much.
Well, we'll continue our college talks through the summer here. Matt, what's next for you here? We've got the month of August. Hopefully, Fifth Liners hockey at the top of the list here.
Oh, it's definitely on the agenda. I've been reffing a decent amount, so keeping on my skates for the off season here. Enjoying some of the lovely folks of Boston, Massachusetts, who take their hockey a little too seriously out here. But I'll actually be out in New York for a week and a half. Got back-to-back weddings on Saturdays, so just gonna stay the week in Rochester. But besides that, getting into the fall, getting into the busy season as an IT auditor, so so the idea of having more time in your life, come work for PWC. We'll show you how little time you want to have with your 5 to 9.
Owen, snaps to you here. You've made it through your first episode on the show. Many more upcoming, but we got congratulations to send your way. A new job. You're in Boston right now, you said. When do you head up to Vermont there in Burlington?
So September 1st, I move in there. I'm going to be calling some soccer games for them this fall, which I'm really excited. They actually just won the national championship.
They just did. They were a good team last year.
So that'll be really excited to get involved with that. And I've heard nothing but great things about. Well, I've actually been to a couple times in the fall to Vermont, but it's super nice there. So I'm excited to just kind of experience that a little bit. And get to know the area, and then before you know it, hockey season will be starting up in early October. So that'll be a lot of fun. But I got to kind of figure out what I'm going to do the rest of the August. I'm going to go visit some friends in NYC and see some of the U.S. Open tennis. So that should be kind of cool.
Oh, but nice.
Yeah, just kind of enjoying the last couple of weeks of just being between jobs.
And they'll have a firsthand look at a lot of those names that we just ripped through. I am in between moving in here, moved down. We've kind of hinted at it. I guess I never really announced it here, but we'll be working for the Greensboro Gargoyles, and hopefully we'll be able to get a couple of the Spit and Chicklets guys on coming up this fall. But currently living at Coach's house in his downstairs room, and then hopefully moving into a place by September, chasing Owen's timeline there. But for now, getting acclimated. A lot of good golf down here, which Matt, you've been spoiled with moving to Tennessee, and the golf season much longer than it is in upstate New York. Unfortunately, it's rained every single day I've been down here, so I brought that with me from Rochester. Maybe catch some sun coming up this weekend. We had sun on Saturday and Sunday, fortunately, so I played my first couple of golf rounds. We'll actually be coming up your guys' way playing in Worcester. Matt, maybe mark your calendar to get back behind the microphone, but we'll have to plan a little Fifth Liners get together, maybe a live show on a Sunday afternoon.
We can make that happen for sure.
We'll be back next week is the plan, and Owen now fully initiated to the Fifth Line. Episode 34 is up and down. 35 to come here. We've got plenty more NHL to talk about. We've got college hockey on the fritz and coming up quickly here as we count down the days to hockey season. Make sure to like and subscribe Instagram and Twitter, as well as TikTok at Fifth Line Pod, and on YouTube, the Fifth Liners Hockey Podcast. Like, subscribe, comment, follow. All of it helps us out here as we look to boost the ratings coming in hot into this season. For Matt Leonardo and Owen Gund, I'm Casey Ditzel. Have a good one, everybody.